It's a dark and stormy night. You're a valiant warrior enjoying a peaceful life with your beloved family, until disaster strikes. The Archmage Zealot transforms into a wicked dragon, snatching your daughter under the glare of the moon. So you take up arms to venture into his turf, dead set on recovering your daughter and your peace of mind. Then a huge rock falls on your head and cleaves your skull, making your efforts fall flat. Welcome to Shadow of the Beast 2, one of the most visually stunning games brought to life by British developers, plagued by myriads of problems behind the curtain. This beast of a game is a side-scrolling action RPG throwing puzzle solving, action-packed combat, and immersion into a blender packed with stupendous graphics. Let's get that out of the way first so I don't beat a dead horse. This game looks fabulous. If you played it when it was brand new, its fluidity is probably the first thing that sticks out of your memories. Caramoon's inhabitants can easily fill half the screen with their enormous sizes, and Reflections, the developer, spared no expenses on their appearances. Everywhere you turn, there are stubby gargoyles, scrawny and cunning little goblins, unnatural unions of men and bird, and so much more. All of which have extensively detailed sprites that ooze bodily detail. That's not even counting your own character, who might have one of the most realistic run cycles I've ever seen out of a 16-bit game. Hell, it even looks three-dimensional when you shatter stones into pieces. These savage-looking characters are complemented by equally threatening backgrounds. The land is surrounded by jagged mountainsides that have tips as sharp as the deadliest sword, making it easy to conjure the sensation of being the underdog in an alien land, where might makes right, and the only fair folk around are scared out of their minds. Shadow of the Beast 2 would easily get an S+ for visuals alone, going above and beyond showcasing more detail than an average role-playing game would allow at the time. There is an actual game to talk about, though. Interaction distinguishes games from pictures, after all. As I was hinting earlier, Beast 2 is an action RPG, leaning more heavily on platforming and action, but still having substantial role-playing elements. If you ever played Zelda 2 or anything similar to it, that's an apt comparison. You land on Caramoon's soil carrying nothing but your trusty flail, which you'll bash many heads with, and solid controls, which are equally useful in your quest. No tips or clues on where to go, no signs of life from the get-go, nothing. It's up to you to figure it all out by exploring these unfamiliar sites and either drawing a map or memorizing every notable landmark. Shortly after embarking, you'll come across someone being assaulted by a gargoyle. Assuming you don't accidentally kill him, he'll happily provide you with some much-needed information if you help him out with his predicament. This is old-school adventure game design, and I'm actually down for that. Back in the day, computer games weren't household objects. Games that originated on home computers were made by nerds for nerds. While some might say the lack of immediate instruction is inconvenient, that separates Beast 2 from your average game with a map. This is a simulation of what it would be like to be marooned in uncharted territory far away from security. Finding your own way around and not feeling lost anymore is its own exhilarating relief. This is further exemplified in the PC versions because the developers took a hint from the Ultima and Wizardry series by implementing a conversation system that lets you ask the world's characters about specific subjects. You can't swear at these guys, but you can attempt conversation with demons and learn more about the world you're visiting if you feel like it. My point being that much like those grandfather RPGs I mentioned earlier, you're sacrificing gameplay convenience for a grander feeling of adventure. It may have been a conscious decision to increase the difficulty of the game and make it seem longer than it actually is, But there's a lot of upsides to this ancient approach to adventuring, and the extra effort put into the non-essential details makes the game that much more immersive. It's especially refreshing nowadays when you have tons of Final Fantasies and Skyrims which were designed for a more laid-back gamer. Once you fight your way through enough man-eating sharks, the same figure-it-out-yourself mentality goes with inanimate objects. You'll collect tons of knickknacks on your travels, and even though their use isn't spelled out for you, you can figure out what each item's for by examining your environment and giving a handful of puzzles a little thought. None of these contraptions are too cryptic to overcome with some experimentation, and you will feel like you're just as much of a genius as you figure out which switches enable which bridges, all without any guidance. Furthermore, some of these problems have more than one solution. Say you're locked up in a dank goblin dungeon with a buddy that needs to be sprung. You've got two choices here. You can either offer the little guard punk some ale and get him plastered, allowing you to make a quick and easy getaway, or, if you don't have the ale, you can get the guard's attention by banging on the door and clobbering his face in at the expense of some of your health. It's as raw of a deal as it gets. You get the scale and scope of an epic condensed into a faster-paced setting that won't take you 6 to 10 hours to complete. How could you go wrong? Then the problems arise. For a game that merges action and adventuring so brilliantly, Shadow and the Beast 2 also has some of the most baffling, backwards-ass design choices I've ever seen in a platformer. As the video clip demonstrated earlier, it's very possible to get yourself in a situation where the game becomes unwinnable. That was also normal for prolonging otherwise short games. But the manners in which your quest can fail are demeaning and infuriating. I can buy being left to rot in Goblin Jail if you fail to protect the other prisoners helping you escape, but I don't believe this guy can't push a rock off a tiny incline like that. Great! Caramoon is doomed to live under the influence of the evil wizard forever because our character doesn't know how to push a boulder to the left. Come on, man! This should be an easy fix. These game-ending conditions are all over the place, and I'm not even sure if some of these were intentional or overseen during development. Like right here! I can't go back to the Dragon Shrine after my first visit? What the fuck? I just wanted to get a health potion before picking up the magic scroll. Pardon me for being smart. As a side effect of all the soft blocks that make progression impossible, the game designers only give you one life to complete the entire game with. No saves or continues in sight. Although some later versions, like the Sega CD release, give you extra lives, most don't. Accidentally being able to lose the game because you had the audacity to think a door would stay open once you unlocked it is the kind of nonsense that sours people on Beast 2's ideas. And that's a crying shame. I really don't want to look down upon a game that has lightning-spewing dragon overlords in it, but there are hundreds of other games that won't accidentally punish you for managing your inventory wisely. At least it's not as hateful as Myst is. Despite being bogged down by its biggest design blunder, I still felt Shadow of the Beast 2's creativity shone through every aspect of its world and creature design, which really kept me pumped to see it through to the end. Concluding strongly with your warrior emerging from Zelek's tower during a ferocious magical thunderstorm. A lot of it might boil down to my personal tastes, since I really like barbarians and monsters. But can I recommend Shadow of the Beast 2 to an average Joe? Only if they're willing to put up with some logic-defying nonsense. I'd tell most people to stick with Zelda 2 instead. But if you can put up with the lack of thought that went into this game's structure, Shadow of the Beast 2 can be a great way to spend a few evenings in the belly of one of the many fine-looking beasts out to eat you. I give Shadow and the Beast 2 a B-. If you enjoyed the show, please feel free to like the video, spread it around, and hit that subscribe button. Peace and long life, everyone!